Brad Rosenheim is here with Rosenheim and Associates. Brad's been around here in the West Valley for a long time. I call him an expediter. He hates that term to it, but basically he works with a lot of the developments that are coming in to make sure that they're going to be able to do their projects correctly. And I have to say, and I've said this before, that Brad, as a general rule, works very hard to make sure that the projects that are coming in are going to be good projects coming in the community. So I appreciate the work that he's done in the past, and until he violates that, we'll talk nicely about him, and after that we won't. But there it is. Brad, why don't you quickly give me a background of who you are, where you've come from. I know you're back with Browdy's a field deputy many years ago. You've got a couple of people that are here as well. I see that we have Maria that's here, and we have Stephanie that's here as well. If you could give us a background of who you are. As I say, who are you, what do you know, and why do you know it? So why are you here, and what are you going to do? And who these two ladies, what do they have to add to the conversation? So,
well, thanks very much, John. Appreciate the invitation today. We're very happy to be here and by the board. So my background, and I have been out here for a long time. I started my career working in Marvin Browdy's office in 1980. So it was a long time ago. Spent 8 years working with the city. Learned the community really well, especially the San Fernando Valley portion of his district in the San Fernando Valley, and have been out here ever since. I opened my land use planning firm here in Warner Center in 1995. So been working in Warner Center specifically for quite some time. And in between my public sector and starting my own company, I worked with some other folks and dealt with Warner Center for 6 years prior to starting my own business out here. So it's been a great run, and truly met a lot of really wonderful people over the years, including Gordon, who was a constituent and bent my ear, like you wouldn't believe, but we became good friends, and he was a good source of knowledge over the years. So I appreciate the opportunity. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to introduce myself. I don't know, Maria and Stephanie, if you'd like to just say hi.
Hi, guys. Hello. Good evening. I'm Maria Camacho with the LA Rams. I handle government affairs. I am a very proud Valley girl through and through. 818. Still have that as my cell phone number. Very proud of it. Grew up in Encino. So excited to be a part of the Rams family and coming back to the Valley where my roots are. So very excited to be here. Thank you for your time.
Hi, everyone. Stephanie Chang, Head of International and Special Projects. Super thrilled to be part of the team to bring the Rams back to LA and to the Valley like Maria. So excited for this session.
Well, we definitely appreciate both of you being here, and you as well, Brad. We were supposed to be having the architect in this evening as well. Darren, who's made a presentation to our board before, just had a passing in his family and is not unable to join us for this evening, and I'm sure him and his family that our thoughts and our prayers are with both him and his family as well through difficult times, and hope that they will all recover from that and put things back in perspective. And we're looking forward to seeing him back out here and helping with that. I think, as you'll see, some of the drawings and some of the plans that they've worked on are going to be good for the community and what have you. So we appreciate that. Brad, back to you.
Well, thank you very much, John. Again, thank you for the invitation. We're very happy to be here. As I mentioned, I'm here in Warner Center. I'm actually looking over the Anthem site right now. I still refer to it at the Anthem site. Hopefully in the not too distant future, I'll be referring to it as the Ram site. But it's been a pleasure. Our firm, we do land use planning and land use entitlements. Sarah Golden is with us tonight too. She keeps me in line and will make sure I do things correctly. But what we're here to tell you about is the relocation of the Rams football operations and training facility to the northeast corner of the Anthem property over at Irwin and Canoga Avenue. And I'll wait to share the screen for a minute. I wanted to start the presentation with a bit of an overview of what this facility is, what it's not. And then let Maria talk a little bit about the Rams' involvement in the community and going forward. And then, of course, we'll have an opportunity for questions and answers. So what are we proposing? Some of you may be aware that when the Rams moved back to Los Angeles in 2016, they located their football operations and training facility in Thousand Oaks over at Cal Lutheran. What we're proposing to do is relocate that facility to the Warner Center community, from Thousand Oaks to that northeast corner of the Anthem property. The folks that will be relocated as part of this are the full coaching staff, all of the players, football and training staff, the folks who take care of the athletes, the equipment staff, the operations and administration for the operation of the football team, and then the video personnel. So during the season, the peak occupancy of the facility will be roughly 200 to 220 people, and then it will vary throughout the year depending on the time of year and the nature of the practices that might be going on. Now, we have made an application with the City of Los Angeles Planning Department. There's a process in the Warner Center 2035 plan that allows for certain expansion of existing buildings to occur up to 50,000 net new square feet. And that is approved under an administrative review by the staff. So the new facility will actually be primarily office space and physical training facility, and then the ancillary support for that. And I'll show you the floor plan in a little bit. In today's world, much of the football world is done in the classroom and in meeting settings. They're learning a lot about their positions. They're learning a lot about their playbooks. They're learning a lot about their opposing teammate, the opposing team. So a lot of that takes place indoors in classroom settings. There will be 2 football fields outdoors. They're actually limited to use to 2 hours per day, and that is part of the collective bargaining agreement between the Players Association and the NFL, as I understand it. So there's a limited use of those outdoor fields. They'll be used during the day. There are no outdoor lights other than security lighting. So there will be no large floodlights over the fields, and they will not be used at night. Now, one of the questions that's come up is whether there will be any amplified music and or fan noise. As you probably know, when the Rams go to visiting stadiums, some of them are extraordinarily loud. And in order to train, they will use amplified noise to help get them the players used to that environment. But at the same time, we have very restrictive requirements in the City of Los Angeles as to noise. So an acoustical engineer will be, and actually is working with the Rams to design an appropriate system to assure that the applicable noise regulations will be met around the field. What isn't this facility? This is not a place where the Rams are going to be playing games or having competitions. This is purely a practice and training facility. There are no bleachers. There are no other accommodations or amenities to serve folks coming to watch the Rams practice. It is a very secured facility. It is entirely fenced and gated. And the practices are closed to the public. There will be limited access to corporate staff, also certain pre-approved guests and pre-approved media, but otherwise the occupancy, the participation on the site is limited to the players, the coaches, and the folks who are headquarters in the operations, football operations facility.
Brad, it sounds like this is a business situation. It's not an entertainment situation.
Correct. This is their office. This is where they go to work every day, and it is not for entertainment purposes. That takes place on Sundays, somewhere else, SoFi Stadium or out of town. So thank you for clarifying that, John. You're absolutely right. There are training camps, and you're probably familiar. You know, the Cowboys used to, and maybe they still do, practice, have their training camp up at Oxnard. Well, and for the Rams, they have their training camp, which is open to the public at UC Irvine. And that's been going on since 2016 when the Rams moved back to Los Angeles. And so that's where the public interaction between the Rams practices takes place a couple of weeks or a few weeks preseason. Somebody asked the question whether,
Brad, just quickly on that one, does that mean that both those activities will be going on? They'll be training here, and this will be their business location, but they will also have those other locations where there will be some participation by the general public to come watch them?
and Stephanie, you may want to answer this, but that's my understanding, is that for a period of a certain number of weeks, they will be down in Irvine, and that's open to the public.
Correct. We essentially move operations to Irvine during that period.
So everything is going to basically operate out of there, and that's going to be open to the public. So the public wants to come out and see them. That's where it's going to happen, not here at the Woodland Hills facility, correct?
Absolutely. And those tickets and practices are actually available now. So if anybody's interested in coming this summer, that's go on our website.
Okay, very good.
So somebody asked a question at some point about whether or not the athletes, or I guess management, or the coaches would be flying into the property, like taking a helicopter. And the answer to that question is no. There won't be helicopters coming and going from this facility. And as we talked about with the board a few weeks ago, the Rams are really anxious to move into Warner Center. This is their new home. Time is of the essence. We're working with the city to go through the city process, and as some of you know, it's time consuming and laborious, but we're making our way through it. But the most effective way to move on most quickly is through the utilization of modular buildings. And they've been using modular buildings since they moved to Thousand Oaks in 2016. As you can imagine, the construction of those facilities is much more expeditious. And the design really has proven to be very workable and to meet the needs of the team. As a matter of fact, the World Championship Super Bowl team practiced and was out of a modular facility at Cal Lutheran in 2022. So it certainly meets the needs of the team. But the structures are not permanent. They really have, for this kind of purpose, roughly a 5 to 7 year useful life, give or take a little bit. So it is definitely the aspiration of the Rams at some point to have a permanent structure built in Warner Center to accommodate the football operations and the team. As you can imagine, football is a very competitive business, and part of that competitiveness is creating facilities that really do create a world-class franchise, and that is the Los Angeles Rams. With that said, I will tell you that the team is very, very concerned about making sure they do things very carefully and thoroughly and thoughtfully. And so the key to establishing the practice facility in Warner Center is go with what you know, right? They know these modular units work well. They can be designed to meet the team's needs for the next many, many years, and it can be very effective. But once the team is home and operating in Warner Center, then they'll be able to kind of take a breath and really look at the future and how the ideas to best serve the future of the organization in this community, something that they will certainly be proud of, that the community will be proud of. But at this time, and this is a question that comes up frequently, at this time, there really is no proposal or time frame for that permanent facility.
Just so we're clear on that, it's not the intent that we're going to have these bungalows, if you will, out there for 7 years. This is just interims to where all this stuff can get up and going. It takes quite a bit to get those general plans going, but it's the intent to put a permanent facility in there, not just have these things. And is the community to expect that they're going to be around for 7 years with having to deal with those bungalows, or are we going to be able to get something quicker than that?
Well, I don't think we can answer that question right now, because once we move in, there's going to be a time frame at which we start looking towards the future, right? And that may take a while just to plan out. And then, of course, we have to go through the city planning process, which won't be the administrative clearance process. It will be the project permit compliance process, which is a much more time-consuming process. So part of it will be, how long does it take to really plan out what is appropriate for the future for the Rams, and how long does it take to get through the city process to accomplish that?
It sounds like this is not just going to be a quick process to it, but by the same token, The Rams want to get in, get going, get up and running in a place that they can call home now at this point, and then take their time to come up with some good facilities that are going to be an upgrade for the community, and it's going to be architecturally pleasing and functional for not only just for the Rams, but also for the community too. Am I fair on that?
Absolutely. And Stephanie, Maria, I don't know if you would like to add anything to that.
That sounds right to me.
Okay.
Thank you, John.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen. Oh, I'm sorry, Stephanie, did you want to?
No, I was just going to agree with you completely that we are eager to on all fronts.
Okay. I'll share my screen now if that's okay.
Go for it.
All right. All
There you
right.
go. That's working
Everything look okay there?
within reason.
Okay. You still see my face, right? Okay, so this first slide here is an aerial of again, the Anthem property. And can you see my cursor moving?
I can, but it's not very large.
Okay,
Well,
well,
real quickly.
there we go.
There we go. Much better.
This area, the northeast corner of the Anthem property, is where the facility will be constructed. And it's, I would say, roughly 10 acres of the entire site.
Your cursor got small again, bro.
Yeah, it does. But it's at the corner of Canoga, north-south, and Irwin, east-west, this area. And these are just a few of the photos of the site. Interestingly, and I'll talk about this a little bit later, but you can maybe tell here that this portion of the site, the center portion of the site where the building is located, is roughly 20 feet higher. The ground level is roughly 20 feet higher than the corner of Irwin and Canoga, which creates an interesting challenge, which I'll talk about in a couple of minutes in terms of creating the proper fields. So this is an overview of the entire site. The light blue here in sort of the southern central portion, this is the existing building that will remain. The cafeteria here will also remain. At some point that may be utilized by the team looking to the future. There will be two buildings as part of this program that will be demolished. There's a visitor center that's currently existing, kind of facing the corner of Owens Mouth and Oxnard, and then an old auditorium. These were parts of the Blue Cross Anthem utilization many years ago. The plan is to demolish those two buildings, retain the high-rise structure and the cafeteria, and then add on through a 10-foot wide pathway, covered pathway, to the modular system that will be constructed sort of the north central portion of the site. And this is where all the activity will take place. These are where, and I'll show you the floor plans in a minute. These areas here are artificial turf trainings areas, and these here are the two football fields right at the corner. Again, these are unlit and will not be utilized in the evening hours.
Is that going to be artificial turf or regular grass?
Natural turf, and that's what the Rams play on at SoFi. And I've learned a lot through Darren, and unfortunately, I hope I can do justice to Darren's portion of the presentation, because this is what he normally talks about. But the construction of these fields is extraordinarily technical. In the olden days, for the fields, they used to put a cap in the middle so that, you know, the water would run to either side. Now they really have to be perfectly flat, and that's the interesting challenge here, is because there is a grade elevation difference from this portion of the campus in the middle to the corner of Irwin and Canoga. We have to make sure that these football practice fields are perfectly level. So that becomes part of the civil engineer's challenge to make this work properly. As you can also see, this area currently is primarily surface parking. So we'll be removing quite a bit of non-permeable surface, making it permeable with the grass fields. We're also going to be eliminating two driveways on Irwin. There's sort of the central driveway in this location, and then one towards the eastern end. Those will both be removed. And there will be a driveway, the northern driveway along Canoga will also be removed. Primary access will be taken from Owens. Secondary access primarily for, I think, really loading, unloading of materials and things like that for the use of the team will come in off of Canoga. So this is a little bit prettier picture. You can see the fields. They will be secured with fencing around the edge, and around that will be very significant landscaping planted around the edges and in this larger space to the north of the training facility. And the training facility is set back roughly 120 plus feet from the street. We will retain quite a bit of the parking along the west side of the facility, and then south of the playing fields, practice fields. And here you can see the connection between the existing building, which connects to the basement area of the existing building, which will be utilized, and the training facility. As you can see right here, there is a pickup and drop-off area, and it's my understanding that the Rams will occasionally take buses to the airport together. So the team members will arrive at the facility, and then they will take team buses to the airport to go to their destinations, sometimes for games in town as well. Again, part of the program here is really to create a good landscape buffer around the edge of the facility. There's increased landscaping along this portion. As some of you may know, this is currently a driveway that connects these two parking fields and what was a parking field here. So this is the floor plan for the facility. This light blue at the top, these are the meeting rooms for the position players. These two are larger meeting rooms for defense, offense, and for the team to come together. These rooms tend to be for the position players, offensive, defensive line. They get the big room. They're the big guys. You've got the tight ends, quarterback room. You have the receivers, running backs, so on and so forth. These green rooms here are the offices for all of the coaches, of which there are many. And part of the layout here is to make sure that the majority of the coaches, or a lot of the coaches, will have a clear view to the artificial turf area and the playing fields, which are located to the east of the building. And that's part of the whole program, and why it takes a lot of time to really cue these things up to make sure that they're done correctly. So the coaches, when they're not on the field, will still be able to watch the field and watch the players when they're out there. We've got staff locker rooms up here on the north end, the gray area. This area is for operations personnel. There's a media room down here. And then this area is really for the video personnel, the people who control all the video for training purposes for the players. And that's a very significant component of professional football these days. And down here we have the dining area, another important aspect for professional football teams. And here we have the weight room, and then the training facility where the sports medicine folks work with the players to make sure they stay healthy and recover from any injuries. So we've got the weight room. The interesting thing here is there are a couple of doors that roll up. I'll show you that in some future slide that go right out to the field. So they can walk from the weight room to this area and out to the larger practice fields. And then of course we have locker room and very importantly, the equipment rooms. There's a ton of equipment that is utilized by professional football teams. So that's sort of how it's how the facility is laid out and how it meets the needs of the team going forward.
Brad, tell us about the facility in the center area, that artificial turf, what that's there for, and that access of going right out to the actual practice fields, and that the teams are able to utilize. The layout's a little bit unusual. to where the teams can actually step out of those meeting rooms onto that and get out on the field right away too.
Right. So, and Stephanie or Maria jump in, but this gives the teams as they're meeting the opportunity to step right out onto the field and actually demonstrate with the coaches how they're supposed to handle a certain situation, right? So they may be learning it in the classroom. They may be looking at video in the classroom of how they're supposed to defend another player or block another player, but they can step right out here, right from the classroom onto the artificial turf and work with the coaches as to how to actually do it. And Stephanie, Maria, is that?
Yeah, and John, apologies. I don't know, the host has taken over my video, so I can't turn it on, but
Yeah.
Brad's exactly correct. That can be used for walkthrough space and physical learning outside of the classroom, essentially.
Okay, very good. And by the way, for those that are listening, this is probably the most details that anybody has gotten of what's going on here with this. I know there's gonna be a lot of questions. Hang on to them. We get finished with that, we will come back to questions, I can assure you, because I've got a lot of them too. So Brad, go ahead, finish up. We got some more.
Okay. So this is a visual looking from the north to the south. Obviously, this is the existing building. These are the playing field, the practice fields, and here is the training facility, the indoor portion. These are the two artificial turf areas that we were talking about. You can see here that we have the fence lining the perimeter with the landscaping along the edges. Again, very important to have the security and privacy for the team. That's an essential element to all NFL practice facilities. You can also see the connection between the new facility to the old facility right here. And I'll try to move a little bit more quickly. Again, another view. This highlights that connectivity portion and then some of the new landscaping that is proposed, as well as the fencing that will secure the rest of the facility, again, for privacy and security purposes, which are very important. The facility will have 24-hour security on site and cameras around the facility as well.
Is that fencing going to be chain link fencing or something more appropriate and more permanent?
My understanding is this fencing here will be wrought iron style fencing. It may not be wrought iron, but it will look like wrought iron, maybe steel. I think that's still being refined right now.
Fair enough.
All right, and so here's just a picture. These are those roll-up doors where they can walk out from in this case, the weight room onto the fields. And this is the connection portion between the new proposed modular and the existing facility. This is a view on the left-hand side from the fields looking towards the new facility. And this would be a view if you were standing just off the corner on Irwin, looking to the northwest along the street. This is where that grade issue comes in, right? So we have to create perfectly flat pads for the practice facilities. And the plan is to create a stepped up landscape buffer. We didn't want to put too much mature landscaping here so you could see what the proposed wall and fence will look like. The Warner Center is just for demonstration purposes. We don't have any signage plan other than to reutilize the existing monument signs that are currently on site right now. As we go further west, this will meet zero grade by where the driveway is, I think. So it will be reduced significantly based on the grade necessary to create the playing fields, the practice facilities, and the practice fields.
Is it intended that the surrounding areas will eventually be grown in to where you won't really even see the fence area? Is that the intent?
Correct. Yeah, it's always a balancing act as to how to display it, but we wanted to show that there is a fence here. So we left the.
What's that material? Is it just going to be cardboard or what's it going to be?
And Stephanie or Maria, you may know. I believe this is. I'm drawing a blank for the term. It's.
It's okay. Well, I'm pleased I was actually able to stump you. That's good.
Yeah, I forget words sometimes. So this is just the landscaping plan. There's a lot of detail to it. The real focus is to focus on obviously drought tolerant plants, utilizing a variety of different plant types, including natives for the area. So this is some of the plant type or the plant types that are being proposed. And with that, I'll turn it over to Maria to talk a little bit about the Rams community involvement.
Hello. Okay. Well, thank you, Brad, for that explanation. Really appreciate going through all of the slides. So great job there. So I don't want to be the one to slow the discussion down in the Q&A portion of tonight's presentation, but so we just shared our plans to move our football operations and training facility to the Warner Center. And I cannot tell you how excited we are to be in our new home and roll up our sleeves when it comes to community engagement in the West San Fernando Valley. Super excited. So specifically, as we all know, we look forward to working with our community partners like this organization, like WHO, on finding opportunities for local school engagement and supporting local nonprofit organizations that share the Rams vision. And our vision really is to focus on how do we inspire change through promoting access, opportunities, and driving equity. So there's all kinds of things that we do currently in the community and that we will continue to do, and excited to work with the Valley, within the Valley to do more. But through various charitable partnerships and initiatives, we're currently trying to address issues such as poverty, education inequities, food and housing insecurities, community police relations, youth mentorship, youth health and wellness, and support towards our active and veteran military members and families. So those are kind of the top line items that we try to focus on and topics. I have probably 14 or more programs that I can sit and rattle through, which I'm happy to do. And obviously, we will continue to engage with this organization and other organizations in the region, and obviously work closely with the council office on things. But I can rattle through some of them. Again, I don't want to cut the discussion short on Q&A, but I can kind of hit some top line programs that we currently do across the region and are doing in the Valley. One is Place 60. We've conducted Place 60 assemblies and field days at local schools, which promote physical activity and healthy lifestyle choices among students. So that's a topic that we love to do and engage the youth on and families. Rams Readers. That program is super fun. It fosters love of reading and literacy skills, and it focuses on our engaging the 1st to 3rd grade students, so that generation of folk. Staff Day of Service. This happens, it's been happening since 2016, since we came back to LA. Each month, the Rams organization shuts down, and we ask all of the staff to come out, go to a certain location within the communities, work with a nonprofit or a school or some form of program. And we just contribute our time and effort to serve the community through partnerships with these local programs and organizations and schools. So it's really, really fun. We all get to do it together. Another great program that is featured on our website, the community tab of our website, is something cool called the Playmaker program. So each year, the RAM highlights 13 local community leaders in memory of our players Kenny Washington, who was number 13, and Woody Strode. We try to focus on folks who are advocating for justice, addressing disparities, and inspiring change. We recognize these local leaders through acknowledgement on our communications channels, as well as bring them onto the field during a game and highlight them. We also offer financial support towards their associated organizations. So that's a super fun program that we do every year. Another one that's great is Coach of the Week. So the Rams highlight and provide a financial donation to high school football programs led by coaches who we think embody leadership, character, and emphasize the significance of education. Obviously, those are topics that hopefully pull at the heartstrings of a lot of people, and we want to support coaches who are working hard on those pieces of things as they're also trying to do well on the field. Another cool program is Cleats for Character. This program focuses on donating. It's going to sound crazy, but it's really fun and cool. Donating current LA Rams player-worn, gently used football cleats to high school football programs. So it's a cool way of just engaging the youth with active, materials that the current players use. So it's a really cool thing, Cleats for Character. Another item that we do across the region, we're looking forward to doing this definitely in the West San Fernando Valley, is the youth football camps. So the Rams host youth football camps for middle school students, providing opportunities for skill development and engagement in general. So it's a really fun day and way to get out to the youth and engage them. A great other program, LA Rams Coaches Shadow Program. So we work with high school coaches are selected to attend Rams training camp, which we'd mentioned happens at UCI, to spectate on the field and have an exclusive opportunity to learn directly from the Rams coaching staff while they're out live on the field doing the training camp. It's really cool to see the coaches from local high schools engage in this. Other obvious thing that we get excited about the opportunity to do is equipment donations. So when we're able, we donate available football equipment to high school football programs in an effort to enhance their resources and provide opportunities to engage with the local schools. Another really cool program is called our Rams Pathways to Success. This program provides high school students with an amazing 6-month mentorship program, pairing them with Rams staff members and offering job shadow opportunities. So I know I've participated in that and worked closely with some great youth from our communities. Another great one is School District Academic Challenge. So sometimes the districts try to engage and entice schools to do competitions on the academic side of things. So when that is launched into, the Rams try to support and make a $2,500 donation to participating schools that win the academic competition. So it's a way to kind of cheer on our awesome academic scholars in the local schools. So it's really cool to do that. Another one that's very important is the Crucial Catch Games. So the Rams partner with schools to host games that celebrate cancer survivors and raise awareness to those families who are going through troubling times, struggling with cancer. So that's something that we get to work with schools on, focusing on the importance of just giving each other a hug when it comes to those who are suffering the disease of cancer. Another really, really cool program is honoring female tackle and flag football players during our Rams home games. So recently, I'm not sure if everybody knows, but CIF recently launched the female flag football program, which we were very much supportive of, to support females already playing in the game of football. So the Rams recognize and honor female tackle football players from various high schools. And we did that during the 2022 season Rams home game. And we invited them to attend games and recognize them and honor them during the game. Another cool thing is, which I think is a great way to experience things together. We engage local high school football teams and bring them to a Rams home game. So as we continue to build relationships with local high schools in Valley, which I'm super excited about, the Rams, we can find ways to provide home game tickets to an entire local high school football team. So I think that's a fun way of kind of bringing the team together and then just, cheering on, hopefully they're cheering on the Rams and not our opposing team. We can't knock them out for that, but it's a cool way of just bringing the youth together around hopefully the love of sport. So those are just top line items.
Absolutely amazing that there's all these things that are going on, and it's throughout the entire area. In other words, it's not necessarily just directed at the fields and this particular facility that's being built, but rather what the Rams are doing generally by coming to the community itself. If there are those people that have heard some of these things that may have heard for the first time, how do they go about getting a hold of somebody to be able to find out some more about it? Is that coming to you, or is that coming to a general number at the Rams office, or how do they handle that outreach committee?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Love it. We actually have a website or an email address that we created that we're going to be working through to make sure we're engaging the members of the community of Woodland Hills and the Warner Center. So I can share that with you now.
Please.
And we'll share it with you, John, so you can, share it again amongst your members. But it's warnercenterinfo@rams.nfl.com. So any questions or programs or things that you all think would be of interest to us from the community angle, we're happy to go through there, and then we'll work through those items and discussions and bring the community department to engage on specific items. So thank you for offering that up, John.
I appreciate that. And they got a lot of people who have some questions that are there. I've got a couple of very quick ones before we get into it. Chris, I'm going to come to you in a second on that with your question. Brad, I understand that the Anthem building itself is not going to be utilized except for the basement. I think you're doing some storage in the basement, but the rest of the building is going to stay unoccupied. Is that fair?
Yes, for the time being, it will be unoccupied.
Is there some reason why they're not utilizing that for offices or what have you? Is it just that bad a shape, or what's the story over there?
It's deteriorated quite a bit over the last few years, and so right now they're spending a tremendous amount of time. The construction site is spending a tremendous amount of time evaluating its condition and updating piece by piece in order to see how much work really needs to be done. So it is an ongoing thing. You'll probably see people out there doing work, at various points to really assess its condition and its various components.
And what's our turnaround time on this? How quickly are you hoping to be able to have, the first player on the field, shall we say, or into the locker rooms? What's the plan, and what's the hope, at least, or the expectation of getting this up and running?
Well, I will give you the answer that I'm aware of. Stephanie or Maria, you may have additional information, but in the best of all worlds, the fields will be graded and planted in time to use towards the end of the season. And then the modular component will be built as quickly as possible thereafter. If we can do it, it will be simultaneously, but the grading work could probably happen sooner rather than the completion of the modulars. But ideally, we'd have it all ready to go towards the end of the season. I think beyond that, it's really making sure that if we can, that it can be fully operational by the end of the season, so the team can transition from Thousand Oaks to Warner Center, by the beginning of the next preseason timeframe.
So we're hoping sometime, maybe November, might be able to get something going if things go well.
If things went really well, yes, probably December, January.
That sounds good. Chris Rose got a question on it. Chris, your question was interesting. As I'm reading it here, go ahead, Chris. You've got the floor.
Well, I had multiple questions. Two things. One was, I want to make sure to protect our Rams that they practice early in the morning. If you go to the Pierce College website, September 6, 2021, we hit 121-degree heat. I also remember when my kids were playing soccer in the Valley, and that was decades ago, that it was already hot by like 11 o'clock in the morning. So I want hopefully them to practice, if they're only practicing 2 hours a day, to do it early in the day. But my second question is, I believe the Rams also brought the promenade. Right now we're focused on the practice stadiums at the Blue Cross site, but there's no mention of what they're planning to do at the promenade. So can you please answer that? Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
As far as go ahead, Stephanie.
I was just going to jump in about the heat and practice. That Chris, appreciate your concern for our players and our staff. I don't want to speak for my colleagues, but I know that we have the best in the business from the athletic training staff, and they're well prepared to prepare our players to practice in all sorts of weather, as well as play in all sorts of weather, because that's the expectation of them. So we'll take adequate precautions and mitigation measures and make sure they'll be able to practice throughout the season.
Now, these guys are pretty tough. I mean, they got to go from snow conditions and sliding across the field to rain and to heavy sunshine too. So I'm sure they're going to be okay with that. And I can't imagine with the amount of money that they're spending on these guys that they're going to take a chance of somebody getting hurt in that process. But I think the point is well taken, and I think that we need to watch those type of things. Brad, what can you tell us about the promenade? What's happening over there, or do we know yet? And everything's been moving really slow on everything. I think since we've gotten past the time with COVID, nobody seems to know what to do with commercial and residential. Everything seems to be all the developers seem to be getting kind of cold feet on what they're doing. What's up? Tell us about that.
It's exactly right, John. Right now, there are no plans for the promenade. Obviously, the promenade has entitlements from the Westfield project, but there is no plan at this point to move forward with anything. I think that'll be evaluated as time goes on.
Another, get away from any rumors at this point. So there's a lot of property that's available on the Anthem property location. Is there presently plans to do anything else with that property other than what you've described to us presently?
Now, this is what you see tonight is the only plan for the site.
Okay. As time goes on in the future, there may be some things that get moved around, but that you'll come back to the community and we'll talk about that, I would assume.
Absolutely, we will definitely be back.
That sounds good. Is there is the outreach that's going to be done, Brad, something that's, I guess what I'm really concerned about is whether there's any connection to the field process here with some of the outreach to the community. I mean, to talk about those fields out there, they're going to be utilized for any other purpose other than just strictly the Rams, because obviously football doesn't go 12 months out of the year. There's some downtime in that process to it. So I guess the question is to Maria, is there any other plans for the actual fields themselves to be utilized at this point? I recognize, this is kind of, the men are kind of moving around the field here a little bit on what they're going to do. Any plans presently to utilize the field during off-season time?
I mean, I think that's something that we need to kind of figure out as things come along. So hopefully there will be something great that we can kind of share and obviously work alongside our community partners on in doing something fun and cool. But right now we're just trying to focus on exactly what you all what we have all just shared. So as time goes on, I'm hoping that we can figure kind of something else out on field stuff.
Okay, I think that sounds good. Brad, how did you get involved in this project?
Well, I've known Maria for many years, and I think she knows of my involvement in Warner Center. And of course, I was turned down by the Rams as a player, so I think they threw me a bone. And
I figured that might have been the case. Listen, Brad, you're gonna cut off some of these driveways that are going to go in and out of the locations over there. Is that going to cut down on the traffic? I mean, obviously, we're always concerned about noise issues and about the traffic issues. And for sure, we're going to have to come back and talk about that noise issue on sounds being pumped in as we begin to get down the line and that begins to become a reality. But as far as the traffic coming in and out, what's the impact on this particular project concerning the traffic flow in and out of the Warner Center area?
Yeah, the traffic, it will really be de minimis. As I mentioned, for this facility, we'll have at maximum 220 people, at any given time, thereabouts. Whereas the Anthem site at its peak had over 2,000 people. So this is 10% of that. The driveways, the primary driveway will be a signalized intersection. So that's where most of the people will come and go from, will be the Owens Mouth signalized intersection. And that will be ingress and egress, or access and departure, if you will. The other driveways will primarily be exiting only. There will not be ingress or from those, except for Owens Mouth, and then Canoga will also be accessible. So we feel that the traffic is going to be de minimis, really, as a result of adding this facility. When looking to the future, there will be a whole different, analysis done on traffic, obviously.
What's the plans presently to handle the homelessness issues over there? Are the Rams going to be taking any kind of position with that or assist in any fashion? Because there's obviously an encampment that keeps showing up over there, just outside of Ruth Chris area.
Yeah, as Seth mentioned, that's an ongoing work that's taking place with the council office. They've been extremely helpful working with the Warner Center Association, actually, to address that. So we will continue to do so. I think the Rams are obviously going to be interested and concerned, as any member of the community is. But we're trying to work on it as more of a community-wide basis than just any individual property owner.
Here's an interesting question that came out from Emilio. Are you gonna have any jumbo screens on the property on the training fields at all?
Stephanie or Maria?
Can jump in. Sorry, I was taking a moment to unmute. There won't be, by jumbo size, I assume you're referencing like a stadium type atmosphere. There will not be that type of signage or signs on the site. As Brad referenced earlier, this is really a private facility and not intended for general consumer like experience type things. So
That sounds good. Jill, you've got a question. You can unmute yourself. And
Yes, hi, can you hear me?
yeah, I can. Go ahead. What's your question?
Okay, perfect. I think it's absolutely wonderful. I've lived here all my life in Woodland Hills, and I think it's so wonderful to have this facility here. I'm so glad to see this instead of more apartments. But it's going to be amazing. The question on some of this stuff is you talked about the promenade, and you also talked about the extra space that you have at the Blue Cross Anthem parking area. And also the youth projects that you've talked about, Maria. Not one of them mentioned anything about dogs or animals. The only dog park that we have is at Victory and White Oak that serves a lot of city council districts. And there's nothing in Warner Center. And we were wondering if that's a possibility to maybe donate a couple acres here to serve the community, because there are so many people in the apartments that have animals and really no place to go because you can't get to the other dog park before it closes. Also, in your volunteer things, also, I just heard from another member of another neighborhood council that the Chargers has adopted the East Valley Shelter and have been doing donations and like fences and grass areas, and they've been spending a lot of time. We have the West Valley Shelter, and that would be really cool if something could happen over there. And this is all to help the community. But that we are in such need of a dog park in the West End, because the dog park at White Oak and Victory is going to be in trouble. So we need another place to go. And like I said, it would be a great community thing.
Thanks, Jill.
I'm not sure I know about dog park access, but I love animals too. So I think that could be interesting to see if there's local organizations that support obviously animals and of that nature. I'm not sure about use of any of the property for dog park type role. I know, as we explained, kind of things are as described, kind of limited to access given security items. So, but I love, again, that's why we're engaging the community. I love hearing ideas and topics. And yes, the West Valley Shelter is one entity that we are excited to work with, as well as the East Valley Shelter. Of course, all of the shelters, I'm not going to favor one or the other, but I think it's exciting to have the opportunity to engage locations such as the West Valley Shelter, because those are very, very exciting. West Valley Food Pantry, I know, is one that we've worked with in the past, but I know the shelters are something that we excited to, and local shelters are ones that we're excited to get to know and work with. So thank you for highlighting that.
Marty Lipke, you got a question? Marty's on our board. Go ahead, Marty.
Yeah, I was curious about, I know you're putting the fields in for this, for late this year, probably using in the spring, also probably definitely for next year. But are there any plans to have local high schools to make those fields available at all to any local high schools or other local teams?
Sorry, did you say access to local?
Yeah, can they eventually, I'm not asking immediately, but at some point, once the fields are in, is there any thought about letting some of the high schools possibly use those fields?
Yeah, I think it's again a great item to flag. I'm not sure, and Steph can correct me on this, but I'm not sure that we would be able to open access to fields because they're so much a part of our team efforts.
From security purposes and field maintenance, to date, I don't believe we've been able to host like regular repeated events like a high school.
Access.
But definitely something we can bring to the team to discuss for the future.
As time goes on, that might be something that becomes important. We'll see. Paul Owens, you've got a question? You can unmute yourself. Go ahead, Paul. Or maybe you don't. Paul, you got a question? All right, we'll go to Jeff.
No, just a second.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead. Go ahead.
I don't know where to start, but I work with the Dallas Cowboys
Uh-oh.
and I'm aware of all this. If you don't like it, you can turn yourself out. But here's the thing. I'd like to meet with the people to talk about the whole overall picture of this event. That's all. I work with Tom Landry, and I was a head writer with the New York Times too. So I'm interested in it because I live here, and someone wants to contact me and meet. I am not looking for a job. Okay, I can give my number if someone wants to call.
Paul, why don't you give a contact to them? That would probably be a good one. You'd certainly contact Brad Rosenheim at his office over here in Woodland Hills, and he'll be able to get you through to them as well. Jeff,
You can also utilize the email address that Maria mentioned earlier. That's probably the best for across the board if there are one-on-one communications desired to submit your questions and comments there.
Maria, can you give you that website address again, please? I know a lot of people missed it.
Sure. It's Warner Center. All one word, info, INFO, all one word, at Rams, plural, .nfl.com.
And Jeff Bornstein, you can go ahead and unmute yourself.
Yeah, hi, Maria. Do you do anything with the autistic community? I've found them to be very appreciative folk.
Yeah, we definitely have engaged all different kind of communities. So again, the more introductions we can be given to various, if it's a local community or even if it's a regional LA, whatever it is, we would love to get to know of different organizations and programs out there that we can try to learn about and see if there's any type of partnership opportunity. So definitely don't shy away from any type of community.
Do you have a personal email address, or is that Warner Center info address the best way to contact you?
That would be the best way, because it would be shared through various departments. So if based on the topic.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
Brad, as you know, there was an approval for a stadium over at the Promenade location. Is there any present plans for that stadium to be built to be used as an inside practice facility, or for anything else at this point? Is there anything on the drawing boards, any discussions going on?
There's nothing at this point at all about that.
Okay, so that's sort of a done issue at that particular point.
It's an approved use for the promenade site, but it has no relationship, at least at this point, with anything that we're talking about for the training facility.
Okay, Chris, you have another question? Go ahead. Chris Rowe, you're on mute.
No, I didn't really have anything except for the question I asked earlier regarding what Brad has made clear is they're not doing anything with that property. I would have thought that they would have moved forward with, for example, the hotels or the office buildings and stuff, because it's always been my personal opinion that we could use more hotels in Warner Center, especially when we have these high fire periods, which, as you used to know, we had a high fire season, but no longer a season anymore. So, as you know, a lot of people evacuated during various like Woolsey fire and stuff. So having hotels in the area beyond the Hilton and the Marriott, I feel it would be beneficial so that even if you weren't building the regular housing there, I would like to see these larger buildings be built first before you build the residential, so that the residents are not impacted on the future building. And just like John said, you know, if there's no plan to build the stadium, I don't want them to build housing there before they build any planned stadium, which was originally approved by the original project approval for the promenade. So thank you.
Let's let Brad get into that one there. I think, Brad, it seems like that, again, everybody looks at that Anthem building and it looks at standing up and what have you, it didn't come down in earthquakes. To be utilized maybe as even emergency housing or something like that, it would be necessary if we had a big fires around here, or we had an earthquake, what have you, or some other major disaster. That might be an area that could be utilized for some kind of emergency housing. Is it, I haven't been in the property, so is it really in that bad a shape to where you can't do anything? Lauren, we'll get to your question too after this. Go ahead, Brad.
It really is. It's really not habitable at this point.
Okay.
It will take quite a bit of work and time to make it habitable.
Okay, got you. Lauren, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time tonight. I really appreciate it. I'm super excited to see this project come to Woodland Hills. I think it's super exciting. So thank you all. A quick question. Do you guys have a general contractor that's already been hired to do the construction?
I do not know.
I think we're in such the beginning stages, as you know. We're coming to the community with this stuff from the homeowners organization here. I've been after them personally for probably a year and a half, trying to find out some details that have been going on. Had a number of discussions with the manager for the Rams, trying to find out what was there. And the comment was, we just don't have anything yet. It's just on the drawing boards. And until we get into what we really want to do, we're not really willing to come to the community. Now they're here saying this is what we want to do now at this point. So I think we're kind of early in stages on stuff with that. Lauren, it sounds to me, and my impression has been, and I think we're hearing that from Brad too, they haven't made those decisions yet. So I think there's a great opportunity for employment in a lot of areas that's going to be out here for this construction and for the improvements that are going to go on. It'll be interesting to see what they're going to do with that field, Brad. That's going to be an interesting challenge, I think, to kind of level that thing out. They want that field to be absolutely spot laser level. And Brad, I understood there was something going on too about them grinding up some of the asphalt that's over there and using that asphalt as part of the filling process that's over there as well. Do you have any information on that at all?
No, that's something, as I understand, they're looking at as an opportunity, whether it's a feasible opportunity or not. So it hasn't been decided one way or another, but it is a possibility.
Well, it's interesting that, looking for ways to be able to fill that area, and they're going to have to move around a lot of dirt in those locations. And of course, we're going to constantly watch from our organization what's going to go on as far as the noise issues are concerned. This is another interesting question from Melinda. Are they going to do anything about drones coming over the field to be able to watch what the guys are doing? So you can't see on the fence, over the fence area. What about people doing drones? How are they going to handle that stuff? Or are they?
I don't think we're enough along to have a specific drone plan, but I am sure I have the greatest confidence in my operations colleagues that we'll be able to address that.
I think that will be it. I mean, if those guys can, what did we see? Who was it? Brady that was on a boat and he threw the football to knock down one of the drones that was there. Maybe they can use the football as the drones will be good practice for them for accuracy or something. Or maybe they'll have a drone day and encourage everybody to bring their drones out and see how many they can get knocked down on a particular day, and give awards out to the players that are able to knock them down. So we'll see. That could be an interesting competition, if you will. The strange things that are developing. Brad, are any of you, do you know if there's any plans to in any way prevent people from going into the buildings, like at your place, Brad, for example, and watch what's going on in the field over there? They talk about security issues and that. It doesn't sound like they're so worried about a specific play being found out but more they're looking at security to make sure that there's people are not going to try to do any harm to the field or the equipment, steal anything for memorabilia purposes or what have you. Can anyway give us some kind of an idea of what the plans are with that security issue and people being in other buildings trying to watch what's going on?
Yeah, I think really the privacy and security is about the players, the equipment, the materials that are on site. That's, it needs to be protected. And frankly, the video equipment, the videos, the playbooks, playbooks are, protected with life. So I think that's really, and Stephanie or Maria, feel free to correct me, but I think that's the primary point of security. I know there's a sensitivity about teams other folks watching the practices, but I think so much of it takes place in the class, in the offices, in the classrooms now, that a lot of that is not necessarily exposed on the field, the practice field.
Marty, you got a question? Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask about and I know that Brad has brought this up with the WHO, but I think maybe the people out there should hear, what are the plans for the fence about super graphics, or is it going to be, accessible to taggers and all of that kind of stuff?
Well, I think, and Stephanie or Maria, feel free to jump in, but I think the Rams are going to be very concerned about that as well. And so if there is anything like that occurs, I think it would be taken care of very, very quickly by the Rams, because they don't want, they have a very, they're very protective of their brand. And I think it's very important to them that their brand always appears to be in the best condition possible. So I suspect, if it does get tagged, it would be removed very, very quickly. I don't know, Maria or Stephanie, if you want to add anything.
Nope, I think you hit the nail on the head there, Brian.
Notice a comment here from Jill again. Jill, I'll just repeat.
Hold on 1 second.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Marty.
What about the super graphics? I mean, you're going to see shots of the gigantic shots of the players and all of that on the outside, or?
No, I don't think there's any plan for anything like that, and that we'd have to get that approved, under a project permit compliance for the Warner Center plan. That's right now. It's just I still can't remember what the hell it's called, but stuff over the fence.
Are you saying vinyl? Is that what you're?
Well, yeah, like a vinyl type of.
Scrim, I think.
What's it called, Stephanie?
Scrim.
Oh, it's a scrim that goes over the outside. I understand it's going to be not able to be really see-through at all at that location. But Brad, I know that you're going to they have the abilities to put up the monument signs on what's already there on the building, and maybe perhaps on the top of the existing Anthem building as well up there. Is there any plans presently to put any signage on that masking that's going to go around on the exterior portion of the fencing?
No, there's no plan for signage on that.
Okay, so we're not going to have all kinds of commercial advertisements on that, what have you. It's classy advertising would be one thing, but the other stuff would be another story. But the Ram signs, I think, would make it appropriate and should be quite acceptable without any difficulties. Jill, I noticed you were asking about, or actually making a statement that the prominent property would be great for it to be kept in more open space so that you can have a more higher hotels and that type of stuff that's there. But again, I think that we're gonna have to leave that for a later date when we can have some more discussions about what's gonna go on with that. Lauren, I see that your hand is up again, and I think you can go ahead and talk. Go ahead if you got another question. Lauren, you may have already asked that and you just need to get your hand down at that point. If you got a question, go ahead. Okay, if anybody else has some questions, this is the time to ask them. We got the people that are here that are working on the project, and that's the big deal for right now. So I think that the bottom line to it is this is something that's new coming in our community. We haven't even looked at this prospect. It's always been residential and commercial buildings and not something that's going to have an activity like this that's going to be expanding out beyond the actual physical area of the buildings themselves. Brad, I think that you have always given a commitment to make sure that the projects you're working on are going to come back and look at the input from the community on what things are going to be occurring. I understand you're going to be making a presentation at some point to the neighborhood council. Is that true?
Yeah, I believe the date is the 20th of July that we'll be meeting with the land use committee.
Well, I think that's good to hear that the outreach to the community, I think, is everything to make sure that what's going on is what people really want in the community. And it's been strange, and during the years while I've been involved with all of this, that a lot of times the community people actually have got some good ideas. You know, the developers come in with some stuff and they think they know it all, and the architects too think they know it all, and somehow it just doesn't seem to work out the way everybody expects it to work out. But there it is. Gary, you go ahead and unmute yourself. You got a question? We're just about finishing up tonight.
Yeah, I just want to say that I think it's tragic that no one is doing anything about the promenade, which is becoming a blight on the community.
Well, I think that's something that will be changing here soon on that, Gary. It's just a question of what things they needed to get done immediately and what the plans were, at least in my discussions with them. That's where that information comes up. This is like the first thing that was number one, is to get this thing up and running for the Rams. They have always, at least in the meetings we had with Stephanie and others a couple of years ago, they wanted to have the identity of being the Los Angeles Rams, not the Thousand Oaks Rams or the Agoura Rams or what have you. They want to have their headquarters in Los Angeles. So this is the best place for them to do it at. But we're going to watch to make sure that they're going to be an upgrade to the community and not a downgrade. And that's our job from our standpoint. Aaron, you got your hand up. Go ahead, you got a question.
Yeah, I just want to ask some of the questions that we still have up in the queue. I think these are probably speed round answers. Anne asks, how many new jobs at the facility are projected to be brought to the community?
Roughly 220.
Got it. Any details on that or share with that later?
Well, this, as I mentioned earlier, it's, you know, the coaches, the players, all of the operations folks associated with the team operations, equipment folks, video folks, that, you know, that constitutes right around 220 folks. 220.
I'm hypothesizing the question was being asked about the local community rather than, I think.
Well, truth be told, a lot of the folks, and you know, Stephanie or Maria knows better than I, or know better than I, but a lot of the folks do live in this, you know, general community. I'm not necessarily Woodland Hills, but some of them probably do. But you know, within a close proximity.
Yeah, Agoura Hills is not that far.
That's correct. A number of our folks do live in the local area.
Will there be plans in the future where the training camp will move to Woodland Hills from Irvine?
There is no plan to move training camp.
Have any San Fernando Valley residents, schools, coaches, etc., benefited from all the great programs the Rams currently have? I know, Maria, you listed lots and lots of things. I don't know if you have any details on it.
Yeah, I mean, there's like a laundry list of local organizations and entities and high schools and programs, but we want to hear about more. So the more we can engage with the community and learn about maybe diamonds in the rougher that we're not seeing, that's what we're excited to learn about and engage on expanding.
Someone was curious to know what prompted the move from Thousand Oaks.
Brad addressed that with our desire to be in Los Angeles and be the Los Angeles Rams.
Woodland Hills Warner Center is the best.
Well, let's see.
Aaron, let's get Jeff's got a question here. Bornstein. Jeff, go ahead with your question.
Actually, I don't have a question, but I was just going to say, take it easy on the promenade people. I'm pretty sure they're just waiting for the interest rates to drop.
That's probably the case. There's a lot of stuff that's going on kind of behind the scenes on this. And it's really a strange time right now for the developers to figure out what they're going to do. Brad, I think that you're seeing that as well. If you can't give us just a bit of an insight on that, is why it seems like everybody's dragging their feet, and that's what it kind of looks like it's going on here. You know, that they've Kronsky Group has come in, they bought the Promenade property, they brought the Anthem property, they've got the Village as well. In that they bought, I think there was an article in the Times about there being some properties he bought over in Malibu as well. Kronsky lives out here, as I understand, in Malibu, probably part of the year anyway. So what's going on? Why is there this kind of slow development that's going on, even though some of these projects have been approved? And why would you see that this group would be taking things kind of slowly rather than jumping on this and getting things done quickly? And Stephanie, you may have some answers to that too, Maria. Go ahead, Brad.
Well, I can't speak on behalf of the Kroenke Group, but I think the question is sort of universal right now. You know, the financial situation is different than it was a year ago, 2 years ago, in terms of interest rates, and therefore the availability and actually practical utilization of those funds. That's part of it. Construction costs are very, very, very high. But there's also a big question mark about the market. As we all know, the office market has changed dramatically over the past 3 years. And, you know, in Warner Center, we've had I think the benefit in a lot of ways of having housing built here. You know, I think some people are questioning, is there still more room for housing? I think a lot of folks believe there is, but others are a little bit more concerned. And of course, the retail environment has changed dramatically over the past 3 years. So there's so many uncertainties about what the market will bear. I think just universally, the development community is really trying to figure that out. Again, I'm not speaking on behalf of the Kroenke Group relative to that question, but I would assume as a developer, they're looking at the same questions.
Stephanie, you got anything to add to that? You do stuff internationally with the groups too. Are you finding that this slowdown is a universal problem that's going on throughout the world, or are we just suffering here in the United States on it, especially in California?
Like Brad, I can't speak on behalf of the larger Kroenke Group, but I think our first focus, like we've said, is to get our football team to that site and focusing, and that has been our primary objective. So that's what we've been focused on.
Well, I think that this is an interesting project that's going on. I think that there's a lot of people very excited about you coming to town, and with the prospect of what may be done in the future at those locations. I think that we're excited about that, as you are well aware that the Woodland Hills Homeowners Organization has always maintained a position that we need to have an upgrade to the community. And as long as it can be an upgrade to the community, you're going to get support from us on that. And if it's not, we're going to try to do the best we can to give you some focus of what can be done to make it even better. So we deeply appreciate the fact that you're working with us and working with the community. We're working with the neighborhood council now as well, and that you're willing to come forward and give us as much detail as what you've gotten, that we've gotten from you tonight. I think that that speaks well for your organization, and we deeply appreciate that. So we're getting to the 9 o'clock hour at this point. We want to thank all of you for the time that you've put into this and the presentation of that that you spent such great time to. And Brad, I know that you got kind of thrown in here very quickly on stuff, and we appreciate that for you stepping up to take care of that. And again, our prayers off to Darren and his family on those things as well too. A reminder to all of you that please join our organization. If you find that something we're doing here is good for the community, we think that it is. We've been around since the 80s, working very hard in the community to make things happen. Please join. Just go over to the website, WHHO.com, and you'll find an easy way to be able to join. It's $25 a year for the whole residency there for your family. So anyway, we thank you very much for that. Listen, these times are interesting, and especially when we start looking at what's going on with Darren's family at that point. Keep in mind that things are important, but remember the health of your family is more important probably than anything else. So please stay well. God bless to all of you. Thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for participating. And we look forward to talking to you and giving you some more information at another time. Again, thank you much.